Welcome back to Grand Thrift Auto. Where we got to last time, I'd done half a job of refurbishing the fuel pump on this, my 1976 Lotus Elite. And I'd fixed the leak, but the car still wouldn't run. So it's time to do the second half of the job and finish refurbishing the fuel pump, and then see if it will run. This is the wet side of the pump, and we'll replace the non-return valves in and out and the seals that go with them. There's a filter as well, but that looks pretty clean to me, so I'm going to leave that be. Oh ho! There's a cork seal here that has gone very curly, probably broken down by the ethanol in modern fuel. It's not looking at all happy, so we'll replace that for sure. Under this cap is the dry side of the pump where the electrics are, and in the top here is an actuator mechanism that pulls on a rod that flips that rubber diaphragm back and forth and makes the pump work. It's not easy to know how far to screw in the diaphragm bolt for optimum operation. In fact, I think it just involves a bit of trial and error, as we'll see. Now I've managed to tear this replacement gasket, so I'm going to fabricate a new one out of gasket paper. This is 0.8 mil. And then I just cut out the holes with the blade of a craft knife, putting the bolts through each hole as I go to hold the gasket in place. This is a tricky bit. These need to go in there. There's 5 of them. And they go in easily enough. It's getting them to stay there. It's a bit of an art. These inlet and outlet connectors have got an awful lot of very manky PTFE tape on them, as well as some slightly tired O-rings. So we'll get all that off with a blade and then clean it up with a toothbrush. And then we'll apply some fresh PTFE in moderate quantities. Obviously, I'm also adding the fresh O-rings from the Burden rebuild kit. This is a slightly delicate part, so you can see that having it hand tight had the hose had the connector pointing the wrong way. So I did apply tools using a mole grip to get some extra torque on it. But you've got to be a bit careful because there is a danger that you can split the alloy casing if you over tighten. So go gently with it. So I did apply some mechanical pressure, but only a little bit. And then obviously the same on the inlet side. There, so that's all done up nicely and ready to go back on the car. So the trick with refitting the fuel pump is to take off this the nut on this mounting bolt, and then you can loosen this plate to get behind. You don't need to touch the bottom bolt, but you can then get behind with these bolts that actually hold the fuel pump on. And then you can just engage these in the fuel pump, but not tighten them up. And then you can get behind to get this nut back on. So you need to kind of alternate which bolt you're working on, and then you can do it. Otherwise you kind of get in your own way. Got that loosely located on both bolts. And then I need to get the plate. That's it. Over the bobbin mount bolt, and then get washer, locking ring and nut all over the bolt. That's it, and then finger tighten that, and I can get behind and at least finger tighten these nuts. Oh, it's a pig to get to. Refit the fuel filter into the inlet hose. There we go. And the outlet over there. Make sure that's square so we don't cross thread it. There we are, connected back up. Just need to tighten things up, and obviously refit the electrical connections, which I'll do when I've tightened things up. There we go. There's a bit of wobble on that, but that's because that's just because it's on these rubber mounts. Let's see what happens when we try and start it. So the short answer is, when I tried it, nothing happened. That doesn't make for great video, so so I'll kind of skip that bit. What I'm going to need to do is take the cap off the fuel pump and just slacken off that rubber diaphragm a bit so that it can move more freely. And there's a bit of trial and error involved in doing that and getting that right so that it moves enough to make the pump work, but not so much that it's loose. So we'll give that a go. So here I think is the problem. There's a gap between these contacts and this mechanism. There's a little tab here that stops it going all the way up and making contact up here, and I need to adjust that so there's a gap. So I've adjusted that and put a gap there, and I've wired it up to a couple of wires just as a test rig down to this battery here. So if I connect it, if I make the connection, bear with me. So where I've got to, sorry about the crap audio on this because the weather's really come in, it's windy and there's a lot of rain on the tin roof here. Where I've got to is the pump is pulling through fuel from the tank, but it's not. But it's cutting out and pressurizing before it pushes it through down to the engine. So I think I need to adjust the sensitivity on that diaphragm and see if that helps. It's basically working. It wasn't leaking either, which is good, except in the course of having filled up the pump with fuel and then had to take it apart again, that spilled petrol just everywhere. So that'll evaporate off fairly quickly though, but probably by the time I put the pump back together, that'll be okay. Just to this battery, and slackening it off has stopped it working at all, so I think I've gone the wrong way. It probably needed tightening. So with everything put back together for a third time, let's see what happens to the bottle at the carburetor end when we turn on the ignition. That's looking promising. So I don't mind saying I'm really pleased with that result. I think it's running a lot better than it has done for quite a long time. I think those diaphragms that we replaced in the fuel pump had been on their way out for a good while. I think a lot of that is down to the ethanol in modern petrol. The can, I've chucked a can in of fresh fuel in it, and that's SO 99 octane, which doesn't contain any ethanol in most of the UK. So that's the petrol that I'm going to be using going forwards. It's got to the end of the day now, and it's dark and the weather's rubbish, and the headlights don't work on this car at the moment. So I'm not going to take it out now, but I will do that later in the week. When the weather's a bit better and I'll make a bit of time. So really looking forward to that. Can't wait to show you how this car is to drive on the open road, because it's an absolute joy. Really looking forward to that. Hope you are too. Thanks again for watching. Let's do it again soon.